The single greatest financial decision I ever made was not starting a business. It was not buying real estate. It was not investing in cryptocurrency. It was buying silver when everyone thought I was absolutely insane for doing it. I turned an initial investment of around $300,000 into over $4 million in pure profit. And I did it by understanding something that most people still refuse to accept. Silver is the most undervalued asset on the planet, and it has been for decades. So if you have been sitting on the sidelines watching silver climb from $32 to where it is right now, trading at $95 on COMEX, this video is going to explain exactly why you missed out, and more importantly, why you still have time to change your financial future if you act correctly. Let me take you back to where this all started for me. It was late 2023 and silver was hovering around $23 an ounce. Everyone was talking about Bitcoin. Everyone was talking about AI stocks. Everyone was talking about the next big tech play. And I was sitting there looking at this ancient metal thinking to myself, this does not make any sense. Here was an asset that was essential for solar panels, electric vehicles, medical equipment, electronics, and military applications. The industrial demand was exploding. The supply was constrained. Mines were closing, and yet the price was basically the same as it was 40 years ago when you adjusted for inflation. Something had to give. So I started buying, not a little bit. I went heavy. I liquidated positions that were not performing. I pulled money from savings accounts that were paying me basically nothing after inflation. And I started accumulating physical silver and silver mining stocks. My friends thought I had lost my mind. My family was concerned. Even my financial advisor at the time told me I was making a mistake and that precious metals were dead money. But here's what I understood that they did not. The fundamentals were screaming that silver was about to break out, and I was not going to let other people's limiting beliefs about money dictate my financial future. By early 2024, silver started moving. It climbed from the mid-20s to $32. Then it pulled back a bit, and this is where most people would have panicked and sold. But I did the opposite. I bought more. Because I understood something critical about wealth building. You do not get rich by reacting emotionally to short-term price movements. You get rich by understanding the macro picture and having the conviction to hold through volatility. By the summer of 2024, silver was pushing toward $35. The narrative was starting to shift. People who had ignored silver for years were suddenly paying attention, but they were still skeptical. They kept saying it was just a temporary spike. They kept waiting for a pullback that never really came in any meaningful way. Then 2025 happened and everything I had been predicting started to unfold exactly as I expected. The COMEX silver inventories were draining at a pace that was genuinely alarming to anyone paying attention. We went from over 300 million ounces in registered inventory to barely enough to cover a few weeks of industrial demand. The paper to physical ratio was becoming unsustainable. For every ounce of real silver, there were hundreds of paper claims. And when that kind of disconnect exists in any market, eventually reality catches up with the fantasy. Silver broke through $40 in January 2025, then $50 by March. By the time summer hit, we were looking at $60, which became the high point of last year. And still people were hesitating. Still people were saying it was too expensive. Still people were waiting for a crash that kept not happening. Meanwhile, I was holding. I was not selling a single ounce because I knew that $60 was not the end. It was barely the beginning. Now here we are in 2026 and silver is trading at $95 per ounce on COMEX. Let that sink in for a moment. From $23 to $95 in roughly 3 years. That is a gain of over 300%. And my portfolio reflects that. The $300,000 I initially invested is now worth over $4 million. That is not including the additional purchases I made along the way when I had conviction in the price movements. But here is what frustrates me. I talk to people every single day who still have not bought a single ounce of silver. They watched it go from 23 to 30. They watched it go from 30 to 50. They watched it go from 50 to 75. And now they are watching it at $95 and they are still telling me the same thing. It is too expensive now. I missed the boat. I should have bought earlier. And I am going to tell you right now why that mindset is exactly what is keeping you broke. You have a price anchor in your head. Just like I talked about in my previous videos about money scripts and limiting beliefs, you have created this story that silver should cost what it used to cost. You remember when it was $22? You remember when it was $30? And so $95 feels wrong to you. It feels expensive. It feels like you missed the opportunity. But here is what you are not understanding. The value of silver has not changed. The value of your dollars has. When you adjust for real inflation, not the government numbers, but real inflation in terms of housing costs and food costs and energy costs, silver at $95 is still undervalued compared to its historical ratios with gold and compared to its industrial utility. Let me break this down simply. The gold to silver ratio historically averaged around 15 to 1. Meaning it took 15 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Right now, even with silver at $95, the ratio is still over 25 to 1. That tells you silver has more room to run relative to gold, and gold itself is pushing toward $3,000 an ounce. If silver were to return to its historical ratio with gold, we would be looking at silver prices well above $150 per ounce. And that is just based on the gold ratio. That is not even accounting for the explosive industrial demand. Every solar panel requires silver. Every electric vehicle requires silver. Every smartphone requires silver. Every satellite requires silver. Every missile defense system requires silver. The green energy transition that governments around the world have committed trillions of dollars to cannot happen without silver. And here is the problem. We are not mining enough of it. Silver mine supply has been flat for years, while demand has been increasing. We are running a structural deficit. We are consuming more silver than we are producing. And unlike gold, which mostly sits in vaults and gets recycled, silver gets used up. It gets consumed in industrial processes and often cannot be economically recovered. So when people tell me silver is too expensive at $95, I genuinely do not understand their logic. Too expensive compared to what? Compared to a stock market that is trading at record valuations, compared to real estate that requires 30-year mortgages to afford, compared to bonds that pay you less than inflation. Silver is still one of the cheapest hard assets you can buy when you look at the fundamentals. Now let me address why you have not made money in silver yet, even if you have been interested in it. The answer is simple. You have been operating from a scarcity mindset and a fear of loss. You heard about silver. You thought about buying silver, but then you started second guessing yourself. What if the price drops? What if I lose money? What if everyone else is wrong? And that fear kept you paralyzed. You watched the price go up and you told yourself you would buy on the next pullback, but the pullback never came. Or when it came, it was so minor that you convinced yourself it would go lower. And before you knew it, silver was $20 higher than when you first thought about buying. This is loss aversion in action. The pain of potentially losing money was stronger than the pleasure of potentially making money. And so you did nothing. And doing nothing cost you everything. If you had bought silver at $30 and held until now at $95, you would have tripled your money. If you had bought at $40, you would have more than doubled your money. Even if you had bought at $60 last year, you would still be up over 50%. But you bought nothing. And now you have 0% gains to show for 3 years of watching and waiting. Here is what I need you to understand. The silver story is not over. We are not at the end. We are in the middle of a generational bull market for precious metals and commodities. The monetary system is broken. Governments are printing money at unprecedented rates. Debt levels are unsustainable. And hard assets are the only protection against the devaluation of paper currencies. Silver at $95 is still cheap when you understand what is coming. I am not selling my position. I am holding everything I have, and I am still accumulating on any dips because I believe we will see silver above $150 in the next few years, maybe higher. The fundamentals support it. The supply and demand dynamics support it. The monetary environment supports it. Everything points to higher silver prices. So here is my challenge to you. Stop watching from the sidelines. Stop letting fear control your financial decisions. Stop telling yourself that you missed the opportunity. The opportunity is right in front of you. It has always been in front of you. The only thing standing between you and financial freedom is your own limiting beliefs about money and wealth and what you deserve. If you had told me in 2023 that silver would be trading at $95 and I would have over $4 million in profit, I would have believed you. Because I understood the fundamentals, I did the research, I had conviction in my analysis, and I was willing to bet on myself when everyone else said I was crazy. You can do the same thing. But you have to actually take action. You have to stop thinking about it and start doing it. The wealthy do not get wealthy by being passive observers of financial opportunities. They get wealthy by taking calculated risks based on solid research and then having the discipline to hold through volatility. That is exactly what I did with silver, and it is exactly what you need to do if you want to change your financial future. So stop making excuses. Stop waiting for the perfect entry point that does not exist. Stop letting your scarcity mindset convince you that you cannot afford to invest. The question is not whether you can afford to buy silver. The question is whether you can afford not to. Because in 5 years, when silver is trading at $200 or higher, you are going to look back at $95 and realize it was one of the best buying opportunities of your lifetime, just like $30 was. Just like $50 was. The only question is whether you are going to act on it this time or whether you are going to keep watching and waiting and missing out while people like me continue to build generational wealth.